You're listening to Voice of Rockefeller, where power speaks without apology. Let his mind guide you where comfort never will. Sound of a single slow footstep on a marble floor echoing, then silence, a long-waited silence. They called me a tyrant. I called them inefficient, a word that in the ledgers of this world is far more damning. Tyranny is a matter of opinion, a story told by the man with the smaller army. Inefficiency is a law of nature. It is the rot in the wood, the rust on the steel, the slow, creeping death that claims all things which lack the will to impose their own order. You have been taught that a tyrant is a man who takes, a simplistic, childish notion. A true architect of reality does not take. He organizes, he aligns, he corrects the flawed, sentimental, wasteful designs of lesser men. They said I was cruel. The press, the politicians, the small men with their small businesses squealing like pigs in a poorly run abattoir. They spoke of cruelty as if it were a feeling, an indulgence. They did not understand. Cruelty for the man who builds is not a sensation. It is a tool. It is the calibrated, dispassionate application of pressure to a faulty mechanism until it either conforms or breaks. One does not feel anger toward a misaligned gear. One simply fixes it, or melts it down and forges it into a shape that serves the grander machine. They hated me for this. They raised their fists and their picket signs and their trembling voices, and in their hatred, they gave me the greatest gift an empire builder can receive. They revealed their levers. Every tear, every cry of injustice, every appeal to a vague and flimsy sense of fairness. It was a map, a detailed schematic of their weaknesses. They showed me precisely where to press and where to wait. They thought their passions were their strength. I saw them only as fuel for my engine. Most men die with their hands empty because they believe in the virtue of being liked. They trade sovereignty for approval. They mortgage their grandest ambitions for the fleeting, worthless currency of a neighbor's smile. They build their lives on the sandy foundation of public opinion and are shocked when the first tide of reality washes it all away. They are a chorus of ghosts whispering for permission, and the world in its infinite, cold wisdom grants them none. Stay with me for a time, not for a lesson. I am not a schoolmaster, and you are likely a poor student. No, stay with me for a transaction. Give me the stillness of your attention, and I will give you the one thing your parents and your teachers were too cowardly to provide, the anatomy of true solitude. Not the loneliness of the outcast, which is a form of begging, but the profound, unassailable solitude of the Creator, the quiet hum of the engine at the center of the world. I will show you why power is not a crown to be worn, but a fortress to be inhabited, and why, from within its walls, the noise of the world sounds like little more than the distant buzzing of insects. By the time my voice fades, you will understand how to become untouchable. Not by building higher walls, but by ceasing to be a target. You will understand that the thing you fear most, being hated, being misunderstood, being alone, is the very price of the ticket. And you will have to decide if you have the currency to pay it. Let us speak of the one principle that underpins it all, the bedrock upon which Standard Oil was built, upon which all lasting empires are founded. It has many names, none of them pleasant to the common ear. Strategic coldness, emotional invisibility, the world as a ledger. I prefer to think of it as the architecture of impassivity. Impassivity is not a lack of feeling. That is the realm of the sociopath, the broken man. That is a defect. Impassivity is the mastery of feeling. It is the conscious, deliberate construction of an inner citadel, a quiet, soundproof room in the center of your soul from which you can observe the world in its raw, unfiltered state. The world outside this room is a hurricane of sentiment, of fear, of greed, of pathetic, fleeting hopes. Men are tossed about by these winds like fallen leaves. They make decisions from a place of panic or elation. They marry out of loneliness, they invest out of envy, they quit out of frustration. They are slaves to the weather of their own nervous system. Their lives are a chaotic, reactive mess, and the world rewards their chaos with poverty and irrelevance. Inside the citadel of impassivity, the storm is merely data. You do not feel the wind. You measure its speed and direction. You do not feel the heat of the fire. You calculate its temperature and its rate of consumption. Emotion, your own, and more importantly, the emotions of others, ceases to be a personal experience. It becomes information. It is the most valuable information in the world, for it is the one thing men cannot hide, even when they are silent. Their posture, the flicker in their eye, the slight tremor in their voice, when they name their price, they are broadcasting their entire strategy to you. If only you have the stillness to receive the signal. The average man believes he must participate in the emotional landscape. If a man shouts in anger, he feels he must shout back, or cower in fear. If a woman weeps, he feels he must offer a comforting lie or share in her sorrow. This is a trap. It is the amateur chess player mirroring his opponent's moves. To participate is to become entangled. It is to surrender your position, to be dragged into the mud with them. The master of impassivity does not participate. He observes. He notes. The angry man is not an adversary. He is a boiler with a faulty pressure valve. You watch and you wait for the inevitable explosion. The weeping woman is not a tragedy. She is a river of information. You watch its currents to see where it leads, what it carries with it. Their emotion is a confession. Let them confess. Your silence is the confessional. This requires a form of self-erasure that is terrifying to most. You must kill the you that needs to be seen. The you that wants its opinion to be heard, its pain to be acknowledged, its genius to be celebrated. That you is a liability. It is the traitor within your own gates. It is a needy, vain, insecure creature that will trade a kingdom for a pat on the head. This creature must be starved. It must be locked away in the deepest dungeon of your inner citadel. Your actions in the world must not be driven by its appetites. They must be driven by a single, cold, luminous purpose. The purpose of the grand design. The building of the machine. What is this machine? For me, it was oil. It was the imposition of order on a chaotic, wasteful, and frankly stupid industry. The wildcatters were like children digging in a sandbox. They struck a gusher, celebrated, and let half of it spill into the earth. They undercut each other into bankruptcy. They built redundant pipelines and fought ruinous price wars. They were driven by the hot, quick emotion of the gambler. I was not a gambler. I was an architect. I saw not the single well, but the entire system. The extraction, the refinement, the transport, the sale. A single, elegant, efficient organism, from the rock deep in the Pennsylvania soil to the lamp burning in a cottage in rural China. To build this, I could not afford the luxury of feeling. When a competitor had to be crushed, it was not personal. It was a mathematical necessity. Allowing his inefficient, poorly managed company to survive was a sin against the principle of order. It was like allowing a diseased organ to remain in an otherwise healthy body. The surgeon does not hate the tumor. He removes it dispassionately for the good of the whole. My competitors called this monstrous. They called me a python squeezing the life out of them. A good metaphor. The python does not hate the rabbit. The python is not evil. It is merely hungry. It is fulfilling its nature. And its nature, like mine, is to absorb and integrate, to turn chaos into energy, to grow. This impassivity, this coldness, is often misconstrued as a lack of faith. On the contrary, it is the deepest faith of all. My faith was not in the sentimental God of the Sunday sermon, the benevolent Father who answers the prayers of the meek. The meek, I observed, were trampled. My faith was in the God of the ledger, the God of numbers, of systems, of immutable laws, the God who designed the cold, perfect mathematics of the universe. To align oneself with these laws, of efficiency, of scale, of the relentless flow of capital toward order and away from chaos, was the highest form of worship. My work was my prayer. The balance sheets of Standard Oil were my hymn book. I was not working to enrich myself. I was a humble servant of a divine principle, the principle that waste is a sin and order is a form of holiness. You see, the men who hate you are praying to a different God. They pray to the God of public opinion, the God of comfort, the God of fairness, a flimsy idol built by the weak to restrain the strong. They want the world to be a gentle, forgiving place, a nursery, and so they will call you cold, unfeeling, a monster. Let them. Their judgment is meaningless. They are critiquing the design of a cathedral while sitting in a mud hut. They have no concept of the scale on which you must operate. Their emotional outbursts are the prayers of a failing religion. Do not be tempted to join their congregation. The practice of this principle begins with silence. Not the absence of noise, but the deliberate cultivation of a powerful, observant stillness. In a negotiation, say what you must, make your offer. Then fall silent, utterly and completely. Do not fidget. Do not fill the space with pleasantries. Do not explain your reasoning. Your silence is a vacuum. The other man, conditioned his entire life to fill vacuums, will rush in. He will grow uncomfortable. The quiet will amplify the frantic beating of his own heart. He will begin to doubt his position. He will tell you everything. He will offer concessions not to you, but to the terrifying emptiness you have created in the room. He will negotiate with his own anxieties. You will often find that your greatest victories are won by doing nothing at all. This extends beyond the boardroom. In your life, stop explaining yourself. Explanations are a form of begging. Please understand my motives. Please approve of my actions. You are handing them the judge's gavel. When you are criticized, when you are misunderstood, the instinct of the weak man is to rush to his own defense. He writes long letters, he makes impassioned speeches, he pleads his case to a jury of his inferiors. The powerful man remains silent. His silence says, "Your opinion is not a factor in my calculations. I do not require your understanding." This will infuriate people. It is a profound, unspoken declaration of your own sovereignty. They will call you arrogant. They will rage against your placid refusal to engage in their drama. And in their rage, they will exhaust themselves, they will show their hand, and they will ultimately be forgotten. Your work, built in the quiet, will remain. Patience is the active form of impassivity. You have been taught that patience is a passive virtue, a form of waiting. This is a lie told to keep you content in your cage. True patience is not waiting. It is a slow, deliberate, relentless application of force. It is a geological process. A glacier does not rush. It moves an inch at a time, but it grinds mountains into dust. When I wanted a railroad to give me a better shipping rate, I did not storm into the president's office and make demands. I did not threaten. That is the way of the hot-headed amateur. Instead, I would quietly begin building my own pipelines alongside his tracks. I would not announce it. I would simply have the surveyors begin their work. Then the laborers would arrive. The pipes would be laid, section by section, mile by mile. At first, the railroad would ignore it. Then they would grow curious. Then concerned. I did not need to say a word. The simple, silent, patient construction of an alternative was a statement of intent far more powerful than any threat. The pressure mounted daily, not in heated arguments, but in the cold, hard reality of steel being laid in the earth. Eventually, the railroad president would come to me. His position of strength had evaporated, not in a single confrontation, but over time. He had been worn down. That is patience. It is violence conducted over a long enough timescale to appear peaceful. You are impatient because you are vain. You want to see the fruits of your labor now. You want the world to recognize your genius today. This need for immediate gratification makes you weak. It makes you accept poor terms because you cannot bear to wait for better ones. It makes you abandon a brilliant strategy because it has not yielded a spectacular result in the first week. The man who can outweight his opponents has a weapon they cannot defend against. Time is the one resource they cannot manufacture. By being willing to operate on a timescale of decades while they operate on a timescale of fiscal quarters, you are playing a different game entirely. You are not building a company. You are building a dynasty. To cultivate this geological patience, you must detach your ego from the outcome. The work is the thing, the building of the machine. Whether it pays you a dividend this year or in 10 years is irrelevant. The glacier does not rejoice when it reaches the sea. It simply arrives. Your goal should be to become like that glacier. A slow, immense, and unstoppable force, guided not by emotion, but by the gravitational pull of your own grand purpose. This leads to the final, most difficult piece of the architecture, the self as an instrument. You are not you. The name your parents gave you, the personality you have cultivated, the collection of fears and desires you call your identity, that is not the builder. That is the raw material. The builder is the will behind it, the purpose, the architect. You, the person, are the first and most important tool that the architect must master. You must be able to pick yourself up, point yourself at a task, and execute it without being sabotaged by your own internal friction. This means you must learn to treat your own feelings, your own fatigue, your own desires, with the same dispassionate analysis you apply to the outside world. Are you feeling fearful? Do not indulge the fear. Interrogate it. What is the source of this signal? What data is it presenting? Is it a rational assessment of risk, or is it the ghost of some past failure, a phantom noise in the system? Are you feeling slighted or disrespected? Do not lash out. That is the response of a dog. Instead, analyze the situation. Was the slight intentional? If so, what was the motive? What does it reveal about your opponent's strategy? Is it a calculated move to provoke you, or the clumsy action of an irrelevance? To a master of impassivity, being insulted is no more personal than a change in the weather. It is simply a new set of conditions to be navigated. I kept a ledger, a small, pocket-sized book. In it I recorded every penny I earned and every penny I spent from the age of 16. Every man I employed, every barrel of oil we refined, every contract we signed was entered into a larger ledger. The world for me was a book of accounts. Everything had a value, everything had a cost. This was not a metaphor. It was the operating system of my reality. My own emotions were subject to the same accounting. A fit of anger, a liability. It clouds judgment and leads to costly errors. A surge of pride, a liability. It leads to complacency and a failure to see emerging threats. A moment of sentimentality toward a failing employee. A significant liability. It compromises the efficiency of the entire machine for the sake of one faulty part. Every feeling must be entered into the ledger, and you must ask of it the same question you would ask of any business expense. Does this produce a return? Does this anger serve my long-term purpose? Does this affection strengthen my position? Does this fear protect a valuable asset? If the answer is no, then the emotion is a luxury you cannot afford. It must be disciplined, dismissed, ignored. You must learn to operate from a place of profound, calculating neutrality. People will call this inhuman. They are correct. You are not striving to be a better human as they define it. You are striving to become something else, a builder, a force, an architect of reality. Humans are the bricks. You must be the mason. The mason does not ask the brick for its opinion. He does not care if the brick is happy in its position. He cares only about the integrity of the wall. This is the great bargain, the transaction I offered you. You can have the warmth of being liked, the comfort of being understood, the fleeting pleasure of emotional indulgence. You can be a human, or you can have the power to build a world. You can have the cold, solitary, divine satisfaction of the architect standing atop his finished work, watching the perfectly designed machine hum in the quiet dawn. You cannot have both. The price of the empire is the man. You must decide if you are willing to pay it. This is not a philosophy for the masses. It is a key for a very specific type of lock. A key I am willing to share, because I know that 99% of those who hear this will lack the fortitude to use it. They will find it chilling. They will call it monstrous and turn back to the comforting warmth of their mediocrity. But 1%, one man in 100, will feel not a chill, but a resonance. A quiet, terrifying click as a forgotten door swings open in the back of his mind. He will recognize the truth of it in his own bones. He is the man I am speaking to. The rest can return to their sleep. The memory is not of a victory. Victories are plain. They are the logical conclusion of a superior strategy, and they offer little in the way of instruction. No, the memories that forge a man are the moments of immense pressure, the crucibles where his principles are tested by fire. For me, one such crucible was not in a boardroom, but in the quiet of my own home, as the world outside its gates was baying for my blood. The year was 1914. The place was a small mining town in Colorado that I had never visited, a place called Ludlow. It was a property of the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, in which I was a significant, though distant, shareholder. The miners there had been on strike for months, a bitter, ugly affair. They lived in a tent colony, having been evicted from the company housing. The situation was volatile, a powder keg awaiting a spark, and the spark came. I was in Pocantico Hills, my estate in New York. The day was, as I recall, unseasonably mild for April. I was reviewing geological survey maps from a new prospect in South America. My work was an exercise in quiet contemplation, in seeing the world not as it is, but as it could be, structured and ordered. The telephone rang. An assistant informed me there had been an incident at Ludlow. The details were chaotic, unreliable. A firefight between the militia and the strikers. The tent colony had been burned. There were casualties, women, children. The first wave of information is always emotional. It is designed to provoke a reaction, panic, outrage, guilt. The average man would have been consumed by it. He would have rushed to the telephone, issued frantic denials, made emotional proclamations. He would have become a participant in the chaos. He would have been swept away by it. I did nothing. I thanked my assistant, hung up the telephone, and laid the survey map flat on my desk. I smoothed its creases with the palm of my hand. The lines on the map were clean, rational. They represented subterranean truths, the patient work of geology over millions of years. Outside, the world was descending into hysteria. Inside my office, there was only the map, the quiet hum of the house, and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. The telegrams began to arrive. Each one was a new scream of horror. The newspapers, those merchants of outrage, were already printing their headlines. The Ludlow Massacre. My name was next to it. Rockefeller, the monster, the baby killer. The reporters were gathering at my gates like wolves. I could hear the faint sound of their shouting, carried on the breeze. My own son, Junior, was deeply distressed. He was a good man, a man of sentiment and conscience. He felt the stain of it, the horror. He wanted to issue statements, to express remorse, to make things right. He felt the emotional gravity of the situation. He was a human being, and in that moment I knew I could not be. I did not go to the window. I did not read the telegrams as they piled up. I instructed my staff to collect them, to organize them, but not to bring them to me. I was not interested in the emotional temperature of the mob. I was interested in the mechanics of the event, what had failed, not morally. Morality is a luxury when a system collapses. What had failed in the asterisk machinery asterisk of the operation, the chain of command, the communication protocols, the management of the labor force, the public perception strategy. It was a catastrophic systems failure. One does not weep over a broken engine. One diagnoses the fault. My son came to me, his face pale, his hands trembling. He urged me to speak, to show the world I was not the monster they claimed. He spoke of our family's good name, of our Christian duty. I listened. I listened to the tremor in his voice, to the earnest plea in his eyes. I saw his pain, and I catalogued it. It was data. It told me the depth of the emotional current we were fighting against. I loved my son, but his emotions were a liability in this moment. They were part of the storm. To embrace them would be to drown. I placed my hand on his shoulder. My touch was not one of shared grief. It was one of calm, of control. We must have composure, I said. We must have the facts. Anger and sorrow are poor counselors. He did not understand. He saw it as coldness. He thought I did not care. He was wrong. I cared profoundly. I cared about the integrity of the enterprise. I cared about the principle of order which had been so violently disrupted. The deaths were a tragedy, yes, but they were a symptom of the disease, not the disease itself. The disease was chaos. The disease was the sentimental, inefficient handling of a labor dispute that had been allowed to fester into open warfare. For days, I remained in my study. I did not issue a statement. I did not defend myself. The world screamed and I was silent. My silence was not an admission of guilt. It was a refusal to participate in their hysteria. It was a wall. It was a fortress. The more they screamed, the more powerful my silence became. It unnerved them. They expected a fight, a denial, a villain's snarling defense. They were prepared for that. They were not prepared for a void. They threw their hatred against my walls, and it echoed back at them unanswered. In that quiet, I was not idle. I was not hiding. I was working. I was analyzing. I knew that public opinion, for all its noise, was a manageable force. It was a tide. It could be turned, but not with an emotional appeal. It had to be turned with a new kind of machinery. I sent for a man named Ivy Lee, a clever man. A man who understood that what people believe to be true is more powerful than the truth itself. He would later be called the father of public relations. At the time, he was simply the right tool for the job. I did not hire him to apologize. Apologies are for the weak. They are an admission that the other side's framing of reality is correct. I hired him to create a new reality. He began to issue fact sheets to the press. Calm, data-driven, unemotional bulletins that detailed the company's position, the violence of the strikers, the context that the hysterical headlines had conveniently ignored. He didn't fight their emotional fire with more fire. He fought it with a flood of cold, clear water. And I began a different campaign. Ivy Lee advised it, and I executed it with the same dispassionate precision I brought to a business deal. I began to carry a pocketful of shiny new dimes with me wherever I went. I would give them to children, a small, simple gesture. The newspapers at first mocked it, the old miser trying to buy goodwill for a penny. But they reported it, and the image began to subtly shift. The monster in the castle was now an old man giving coins to children. The act was insignificant. The asterisk repetition asterisk of the act was everything. It was a slow, patient, geological force grinding away at the mountain of public hatred. I visited the mines in Colorado years later. I met with the miners. I danced with their wives at a company gathering. I listened to their grievances. I did not do this out of guilt. Guilt is a useless emotion, a retrospective indulgence. I did it because the machinery had broken, and I, the chief mechanic, had to understand why. I had to gather new data. I had to look into the eyes of the men who had been my enemies and see not monsters, but faulty components. I needed to understand their motivations, their fears, their needs, not to sympathize, but to build a more robust, more efficient, more profitable system that would prevent such a catastrophic failure from ever happening again. The Ludlow massacre is remembered as one of the darkest stains on my name. For me, it was my most profound education. It taught me that the ultimate power is the power to remain still in the heart of a hurricane. It taught me that public hatred is a storm that will pass, but the fortress of a disciplined mind will endure. It taught me that emotion is the weapon of my enemies, and my refusal to feel it is my impenetrable shield. While other men would have been broken by the shame, bankrupted by the lawsuits, or driven into hiding by the hatred, I learned. I adapted. I built a new kind of armor. The armor of public perception, managed and molded with the same care as a refinery. I turned the greatest crisis of my life into a new asset. That, you see, is the difference between a man and an empire. A man feels the blow. An empire absorbs it and becomes stronger. In the silence of my study, while the world condemned me, I was not confessing. I was evolving. And that evolution made me, and the empire I was building, utterly and completely untouchable. From this cold earth of philosophy, from the hard granite of experience, we can quarry a few simple, usable laws. These are not suggestions. They are not aphorisms for a decorative pillow. They are the blueprints for the engine of power. Engrave them not on paper, but on the inside of your skull. The first law, your ledger has only 2 columns, asset and liability. This is the fundamental principle of a clear mind. From this moment forward, you will cease to see the world through the blurry lens of sentiment. You will see it as a book of accounts. Every person you know, every relationship you maintain, every skill you possess, every emotion that flickers through your consciousness, every single hour of your day must be classified. Is this person an asset? Do they bring knowledge, resources, or a strategic advantage? Do they sharpen your thinking? Do they contribute to your grand design? If so, cultivate that relationship with the dispassionate care of a gardener tending a prize rose. Water it, nurture it, but do not fall in love with the flower. Its purpose is to win a prize, not to adorn your lapel. Or is this person a liability? Do they drain your time? Do they infect you with their anxiety, their gossip, their small-mindedness? Do they ask of you but offer nothing of value in return? If so, you must divest. This is not cruelty. It is accounting. You would not keep a failing stock out of affection. You would not keep a rusted, inefficient machine in the heart of your factory because you felt sorry for it. To do so is a sin against the logic of the system. The excision must be swift, clean, and without apology. You owe them no explanation. The explanation is in your ledger. They were a bad investment. The books must be balanced. Apply this to your own feelings. Is this surge of anger an asset? Does it provide the fuel for a necessary confrontation? Or is it a liability, clouding your judgment, leading you to say things that will be used against you later? Is this feeling of comfort an asset, a necessary respite to restore your energy for the next battle? Or is it the liability of complacency, the siren song of mediocrity that lulls you into inaction? Become the ruthless auditor of your own existence. Every morning, review the ledger. Every evening, tally the accounts. You will find that your life, once a messy tangle of obligations and feelings, will begin to take on a beautiful, crystalline clarity. The path to power is paved with the ruthless liquidation of your liabilities. The second law. Master the art of the great calm. In any human interaction, there is a storm of emotion. Fear, greed, ego, desperation. This storm is where 99% of men live. They are tossed by its winds, blinded by its rain. You will not live there. You will build an observatory in the eye of the hurricane. When another man raises his voice, yours will lower. When he panics, you will become still. When he makes a demand out of ego, you will meet it with a profound and unnerving silence. Their chaos is your raw material. It is the energy source for your machine. The more emotional they become, the more data they provide, and the more placidly you must receive it. This is a skill to be practiced. Go to a place where people are arguing, a public meeting, a family gathering. Do not engage, just watch. See the man whose face reddens, whose voice cracks. He has lost. He is no longer in control of himself, and is therefore incapable of controlling the situation. See the one who remains quiet, who listens, whose expression barely changes. He holds the power. He is drinking in the information while the others are spewing it out. The great calm is not passivity. It is a state of supreme readiness. It is the stillness of the predator in the grass. It communicates something far more terrifying than anger. Certainty, your calm in the face of their storm tells them, without a word, that you are not moved by their petty dramas, that you are operating on a different level, playing for different stakes. It tells them that you have already calculated the outcome, and their emotional display is merely a footnote in your equation. Practice this calm. Let it become your armor. It will make you invincible, for you cannot defeat a man you cannot provoke. The third law, speak only to build. Your words are not for self-expression. They are not for entertainment. They are for construction. Every word that leaves your mouth must be a brick in the wall of your empire, or a chisel to dismantle the wall of another. If a word does not serve one of these two purposes, it is a waste. And waste, as we have established, is the cardinal sin. Stop wasting your breath on explanations. Explanations are a negotiation from a position of weakness. You are asking for the other person's approval of your reality. Never grant anyone this power. State your decision. State your terms. Then stop talking. The silence that follows is where the real work is done. Stop wasting your breath on defense. When you are criticized, maligned, or attacked, your instinct will be to defend your honor. This is your ego screaming for validation. Starve it. Your work is your only necessary defense. Your success is your only required rebuttal. Let them say what they will. The dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. The time you would spend crafting a clever reply is better spent laying another brick. When you do speak, your words must be precise, deliberate, and laden with intent. Use language not to describe the world, but to define it. When I called my competitors' businesses inefficient and my own standard, I was not just choosing words, I was forging a reality. Theirs was the old, chaotic, wasteful way. Mine was the new, ordered, inevitable future. I did not debate this. I stated it as a law of nature. Speak less. When you do speak, make it weigh 1,000 pounds. Make your silence heavier still. The fourth law, build your own church. Men seek meaning. They seek a higher power to which they can devote themselves and from which they can draw strength. The common man finds it in the public square, in the approval of his peers, in the shifting dogma of social acceptability. His God is the opinion of the crowd.